another year. And all this purple in the room. Yes. First, give it up to yourselves. It's Friday, right? Happy Friday and the eve before International Women's Day. My name is Ayanna Polk.
My name is Sasha Goodfriend. And we are the co-chairs of the IWD Planning Committee. We are so grateful to be here today with all of you at Simmons University, gathering in the spirit of action, unity, and collective power. Before we dive in, well, let's just take a moment to breathe. Be present. Thank you for coming here today on a Friday morning to take a self-care moment, to be in feminist community, and to feed your soul, and hopefully to feed your body, because I hope you got some breakfast. We have an incredible morning ahead of us, so be sure to check out the program or scan the nearest QR code for a digital copy to read about all the panelists and speakers that we have today.
So every year on March 8th, or the Friday before, we come together to celebrate, uplift, and strengthen the fight for gender equity. This year's theme, especially with talking to our committee, we came up with action and unity, celebrating women's collective power. And that reminds us that our greatest strength comes when we work together, especially at times like this. At a time when gender and reproductive justice are under attack at the federal level, this is the time where we need to build power and community, and not just around reproductive justice, but there are so many issues that are impacting our world today. And we know no matter what the issue, no matter who is in the seat, that women will always be present, always come up with a solution, and always persist. So we're happy that we're creating this space today, that we can all build community, love each other, you know, compliment each other's outfits, because I saw a lot of good purple in the room, and make new friends and get to know different ways to connect to your community, because we think that now is the time that there, like we said, action and unity, and this is the unity part, and those actions are you showing up today. These actions are you getting to know your fellow neighbor, these organizations who are fighting the cause, fighting the good fight on behalf of the causes that you believe in, and the ways that you can get involved too, because I always say, we always think about the past and these tumultuous times, and we always think about like, what would I have done in that era? You know, and I always say, if you're doing it now, that's what you would have done then. The fact that you're here is saying that you want to be a part of the solution and building a better future. So thank you all for showing up today.
Even as DEI is facing mounting opposition, we know that our feminist movement, especially here in Massachusetts, is unwavering in its commitment to diversity. We are not going back here in Massachusetts, and by working together, we are our strongest. This breakfast was founded 27 years ago by local women who understood the power of collective action. And every year, our sister circle grows stronger, expanding the movement for gender and racial equality. I want to give a special shout out to some of our founding mothers who are both here with us in the room today and also watching online.
Everyone wave.
Special shout out to Marie Turley, Diane Hammer, Jacqueline Cook, Nancy Ryan, Pat Nickerson, Priscilla Golding, Lori Taylor Berry, and Jerry Martinson and Samantha Overton. Today, more than 60 organizations are represented in this room. This is a testament to the importance of intersectional advocacy. The work we do together ensures that all women, Black and brown immigrant women, queer and trans women, have a place in our fight for gender justice. And I want to give a special shout out to the planning committee. So if you're part of the planning committee, please stand and wave so that we can thank you all for making this gathering happen.
Yes, we've been on many planning calls throughout the year to make sure that this day happens flawlessly. So thank you so much to the planning committee for all of your contributions, your thoughts and your opinions to make sure that we can continue to grow. Yeah. Special guest. See, I knew there was going to be, the newborn demographic should have been a thing this year. We should have had to listen to the babies.
That's true. That's true.
And also, personal point of privilege, Sasha is also a new mom. So I always love seeing that this is intergenerational, that, even as we become parents and caregivers and aunties and all the people that are around the next generation, we're making sure that we're making brighter opportunities for our littlest feminists. So really excited that everyone can come see, so you can bring anybody next year. Oh, okay. So we are thrilled to share that this is a sold-out event. There's a record number of folks joining us in person and online. I know we waved at you before, but I'm going to wave again to our virtual folks. This turnout is proof that our movement is alive, it's growing, and it's not going anywhere, and we are ready to take action. We hope you leave today inspired, and we hope that you meet someone new. Remember, that was your assignment. And we hope that you walk away a little more energized and ready to dig into the work that's ahead of us. Because the truth is, it will get harder than this. And many of us know it will get harder than this. But we are not alone, because with action and unity, we can do this. Boston became home to incredible feminist leaders in every sphere: government, nonprofit, advocacy, and cultural institutions. And spaces like this equip us with the tools, the networks, and the solidarity we need to keep going. So take a moment to connect, because the person sitting next to you might be the key to your next breakthrough. Oh, you like that one, don't you?
See, this is what it's all about. This is what we came here for, the feminist community, because this work doesn't just start and end today. This is just one moment in a 365 days a year fight that we're going to be in. But before we get into that, I wanted to share our deep gratitude to Simmons University, where we are right now. Where this breakfast has been hosted for over 20 years. You've seen photos on the slideshow as you walked in. Simmons is an institution with a long tradition of empowering women leaders and has hosted this breakfast, as I just said. Each year, their commitment only deepens. And especially right now, when misinformation threatens the very foundation of learning and efforts to advance equity are being undermined, women-centered universities like Simmons are more critical than ever. These institutions don't just educate, they cultivate leadership, amplify marginalized voices, and foster environments where truth and justice are central to academic inquiry. As a Simmons alum, I experienced that myself. And we are so happy to have Simmons, led by President Dr. Lynn Perry Wooten, a trailblazing leader who embodies the spirit of today's theme. As the first African-American president of Simmons, she's a visionary academic, an author, an organizational strategist, and a mother. And her leadership is a testament to the power of institutions that prioritize equity and access. So please join us in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Wooten.
Good morning, and thank you for that welcome to Simmons University. It is an honor to host International Women's Day. We have a tremendous group of individuals and organizations who are doing the crucial work throughout the region to advance equity and equality for women and girls. I have to first thank my mayor. Thank you so much, Mayor Michelle Wood. While you were in DC, I was raising money in Florida for Simmons. And everywhere I went, I was sharing your posts, I was sharing your videos, I was sharing how proud we are for your leadership and for your advocacy on this great city. Thank you for the first daughter. Thank you for advocating for my daughter. Thank you for advocating for the women of Simmons. Thank you for advocating for all of the women in Boston. Thank you. This is a special year. Not only is it our 27th year of hosting this breakfast at Simmons, but it is our 125th anniversary. Our institution was founded for equality with the ideal that women could break barriers and achieve financial security through education. As the last and only remaining women-centered undergraduate institution in the city of Boston, we are proud to open new doors to build bridges for students who might not otherwise have access to education. We are about the business, as you heard, of developing leaders, answering the call for the problems of the day. We are about the business of empowering people to come up with solutions. So in light of the current moment, I've been reflecting on the theme of this year's breakfast, action and unity, which recognizes women's collective power and the importance of working together to create positive change. This requires us to lead with our values, to advance gender equity, and to support the most vulnerable communities in the world of health, economics, education, and well-being. So all of you here, I'm so grateful for this amazing group of leaders here today. You've gathered to think about and to act on important issues and how we continue to uplift women as we climb. Thank you so much, and you look great in your purple.
Like she's right on top of it. She just
Good morning, everyone. Happy International Women's Day. Thank you. I love you all. Thank you so much. It's good to be home. It is good to be home. So, actually, my husband and I had flown into DC 2 nights before so we could get settled with the baby and be ready for the hearing, which started early, a couple days later. And my team had been really trying to take care of me and like, you're gonna be exhausted, it's gonna be a full day when you come back. Actually, the irony was yesterday, the day that I came back, I went to the doctor for my postpartum checkup. It's that, 6 weeks after you have the baby, you go to the doctor and you get the sign off that you're recovered enough to go back to work. And I had to fill out the surveys, the check-in surveys that were like, in the last 7 days, have you felt anxious? In the last 7 days, have you not been sleeping well? It's like, I don't know how to fill this out. But we had actually pre-taped a video for this event because my team was like, you're gonna be too tired to do anything. We have a full day today, et cetera. But after what I went through and after getting home, I was like, there's no way I'm not gonna be in here in person with all of you. I wanted to be here to say thank you. Thank you to Ayana and Sasha for all that you do to keep us together, to keep us empowered, to keep pushing us forward, to remember that there's still more work to do. Thank you, Madam President Perry Wooten, for all of your leadership, all the things that we've seen Simmons do in partnership with our administration, but all the legacy that Simmons represents that you are carrying forward and really accelerating. I'm so grateful for you and this incredible institution. And thank you to each and every one of you here who represent the city of Boston, and I say that broadly, the city of Boston in standing up for what is right, in refusing to accept the status quo or to go back, and in refusing to cower to bullies in this moment. There were many moments from the hearing that, has been talked about in the news, and it was a little bit surreal being there for all of it. But there was one moment that I don't think really got noticed that I just want to share with this room. About an hour and a half, because we had been telling them, I'm going to need to find a way to feed the baby during this situation. And it wasn't a request they had really gotten before. So they were like, okay, we'll find ways to take breaks so that you can have the time to do that and everyone else will collect their thoughts. And then as the hearing was going, the structure is that there's 47 members of the committee, each got 5 minutes to ask questions. It was like ping pong back and forth for 6 hours. And it got to the point where I guess the Republican chairman was seeing that there were a lot of people there and trying to keep everyone on track was taking a long time. And so at one point he goes, we are going to excuse Mayor Wu to go take a break because she needs to attend to her baby while we continue. And thank goodness for my amazing husband, who has been my rock through this and so much, who had Mira the whole time while I was sitting on the floor and who had been sending messages to my team of like, okay, she's sleeping now, keep going, like it's okay, she's hungry, she's not hungry. And so I said, my husband tells me the baby's okay, and we had arranged with your committee and you that when I take a break, we all take a break, so I don't go to the back room by myself and miss everything. So in every moment, there are ways that we have to continue challenging the institutions, challenging the assumptions in front of us, and also right now, challenging the fear that so many are trying intentionally to put on our communities. So when things get tough, Boston stands up, and when Boston stands up, it is really our women leaders who shine the brightest. And so I'm so grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for our Congresswoman, Ayanna Pressley, who just was always been my shero, but in DC, I was like, this is what you have to deal with every day. I'm so grateful for all of you all who are standing up in your workplaces, in your communities, in taking care of so much, and also keeping us all together, united, because we need that more than ever in this moment. So thank you for everything. Happy International Women's Day.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Boston's 27th Annual International Women's Day Breakfast. Thank you to MassNOW, to President Hensey, and the Board of Directors. Thank you also to Sasha and Kyla. Thank you all for being here this morning. Massachusetts is proud to be a state of firsts, the first public park, public library, public school, and I'm proud to be part of the first two-woman team in the corner office with our fabulous Lieutenant Governor, Kim Driscoll. The theme of this year's breakfast is Action in Unity, celebrating women's collective power. Together with all the phenomenal women leading at the state level and in Congress, in our cabinet, and in our communities, we're showing that when we work together, we deliver better results. We've expanded access to maternal health care, including midwives, doulas, and birth centers. We stabilized and grew our childcare system so more parents, but especially moms, can get back to the careers they love. We made wage transparency the law to make sure that women are getting paid equal for equal work. And we stood up for reproductive care. We protected medication abortion, and we defended patients and providers in our state. At the same time, we made historic investments in education, housing, transportation, infrastructure, and our economy. It's not a coincidence that Massachusetts is ranked the best state for women, the best state to have a baby, and the best state to raise a family. I know this is a challenging time, and there are people out there who want to take us back to a time where we have fewer rights than our mothers and grandmothers. But know that Massachusetts will lead the way forward and champion the future that our girls and women deserve. Once again, thank you all for being here and for everything that you do in our state. Happy International Women's Day.
All right, so thank you to Mayor Wu and Governor Healy for those wonderful remarks. We're now going to transition into our panel so you can hear from our esteemed Boston leaders of today about what it looks like to have action and unity. So just to share a little update, you know, every year, we're usually led in conversation by Karen Holmes Ward from City Line. Unfortunately, she's a little under the weather today, so she will not be joining us, unfortunately. However, you know, with women, when there's something going on, there's a way. So we huddled, and I am very excited that one of our panelists will be leading us in conversation today. So we get a double dose of hearing not only her great communication skills, but hearing her insights as a leader. And I'm a little nervous too, because I've been fangirling about this since we picked her. Because you are a part of the panel, I will be very brief about how we talk about you, because I want you to talk about you. But if anything, I am going to share not the virtual, I'm so used to doing virtual events, I know I'm still COVID, sharing the stage with a great woman, a great voice, and someone who makes sure that everyone in Boston can see themselves in the future and keeps us connected. So, and she's also my soror. Shout out to Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. You know I do that every year. I'm sorry, I have to do it. But without further ado, I would love to introduce Colette Phillips. Please join me up here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayana, and is it Sasha? Yes, and President Wooten. Okay. You have been an amazing president for this institution and have lifted Simmons up in ways that have never happened before. So thank you for that. And now it gives me pleasure, but before we begin, isn't our mayor amazing? I want to read something that I posted yesterday that is very relevant to today. And I wish you could all, when this is over, come up and look at this room to see how amazingly beautiful it is, to see all these women standing up for each other. Here is what I posted. I said, what Mayor Michelle Wu did yesterday at the congressional hearing should inspire us to be fearless, especially those of us from marginalized groups, such as Black, Brown, Asian, LGBTQ+, and women. We must not let fear and despair hold us back. We need to stand up for ourselves and refuse to be bullied, especially in this environment, because that's exactly what the haters expect. Retreat, they expect us to retreat and live in fear. But as Vice President Kamala Harris says, we are not going back. And now it gives me great pleasure to bring to our stage my fellow panelists, who are an amazing group of women. We have a powerhouse panel, and you guys have been doing this for 27 years. So I am really impressed. And there are still more wonderful women out there to do really good work. I would be remiss if I did not call out on today's historical day another history maker in the room, in addition to President Wooten, and that is Charlotte Gola Ritchie, who was the first Black woman to run for mayor in this city. And she happens to be one of my best friends. Reverend Clementina Cherry, please come to the stage. She is the president and CEO of the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute, a woman who took scars and turned them into stars, and a fearless advocate for nonviolence and for women and for our youth. Thank you, Reverend Cherry, for all you do. To my next dear friend, Freddie Kay, who is also a fearless advocate for women, so much so that she decided she was going to found a Women's History Center so that our stories can be told. And so, Freddie, and Pamela Lanes. Okay. She's the executive director of Boston Education Fund, and we know how important education is. There's an African proverb that says, educate a man, you educate an individual, but when you educate a woman, you educate a nation. So thank you. So before we begin, so I get to play Oprah today. And I also get to be on the panel, so I am doing double duty. And let's send a prayer and to our thoughts to our sister Karen Holmes Ward, who was under the weather and could not be here today. To start, could each of you share why you became involved in the work that you do today and briefly describe the work of your organization? And I'm going to start with you, Reverend Cherry.
Thank you. What an honor it is to be here. I'm going to say, if my friends could see me now. So I really started, I tell people I was kicked into this work 31 years ago this year. My 15-year-old son Lewis was caught in a crossfire on a shootout, 15 minutes from where we live. The day Lewis walked, Lewis was driven every day, but the day he walked was the day that he was killed. And for me, the sense of guilt that I had to deal with, the sense of guilt that I had to deal with, it was unimaginable, yet I couldn't just allow that to happen. I felt that I was being called to do something. And I didn't want to focus on who killed Lewis Brown. I wanted people to know who Lewis Brown was and the many Lewis Brown that are within our community and that have left this world. So I started the Peace Institute. A center of healing, teaching, and learning for families and communities impacted by murder, trauma, grief, and loss. I was a stay-at-home mom. I was married. I thought I was living the American dream. My friends would call me an inner-city wannabe suburban mom who looks like me and stays home in urban settings. And then I got to meet a wonderful person, and I'm going to say Charlotte Gola Ritchie. I'm going to acknowledge you. Charlotte, I went to work. I think my husband was tired of me being at home and just grieving and not knowing what to do. And Charlotte gave me a job as a receptionist at the State House. And for me, that was the day that I'm going to tell people when Lewis was killed is when I woke up, is when I realized I couldn't just sit idly by. I was being called to do something. And so through my pain and anger, I found my purpose, and I decided I am going to take action. And 31 years later, here I am, and such an honor and a privilege to be on this platform. So thank you.
Thank you. You know, there's a saying, Find your passion and you'll find your purpose. Freddie.
Hi, can you hear me? Thank you so much. And it is an honor to be with each of you on this panel. Thank you very much. And to Sasha and Anna, it's been a thrill to work with you for many years. So this is the first time that I'm here on this side of the microphone. This work came about, I have to say, I was a feminist in college. And frankly, I felt like, well, it makes so much sense for there to be equality in the world that everybody's going to get this. This can't be hard. This is basic rights of freedom and equality and opportunity. So frankly, I went off and did my career in public policy because I have a true love of public policy and law. And fast forward to 2010, which was the 90th anniversary of women getting the vote with the 19th Amendment. Of course, there were other pieces of getting the vote which were not covered by the 19th Amendment. Although the 19th Amendment does not discriminate, other laws prevented women from voting, prevented Native American women, African American women, Asian American women, et cetera, from voting, and those laws had to change as well. So the anniversary was for the 90th. I will say I was very pleased. Attorney General Martha Coakley at the time gave me a call and said, would you like to do anything? Well, she didn't know that I had a passion for suffrage history. And I had one goal, which was to show the movie Iron-Jawed Angels, if any of you may have seen that. It's an HBO movie, not easy to find. It was never in the big theaters, but I encourage everybody to find that movie. And that's when I learned about Ida B. Wells also, was Iron-Jawed Angels. Well, that was in 2010, and we kept going. We had a small committee of people, many of whom I met who are in this room, and we kept going and became Suffrage 100 Massachusetts, and for 14 years commemorated women getting the vote. As I look out on the purple, I am reminded, as I know many of you are, that that was one of the suffrage colors that came over from England, where it was purple, white, and green, and in the United States, it changed to purple, white, and gold. And I looked up purple and what they thought about it in England. It had everything to do with integrity and passion. And so I think it's what our message is about, is passion for all of us about equality. Long story short, then 2020 was the centennial, the 100th anniversary. We were leading up to that. And we had had many events. Many of you here today have joined us at the Swan Boats for our annual Women's Equality Day event, and movie screenings that we've had and so forth during the years. But 2020 was the pandemic. We had to cancel our march, where Sasha, we had worked on lining up the city to be able to do that. We had to cancel it. And so lemonade out of lemons, we made a film. And Katrina Huff-Larmond is here. She's in the film that we made back in 2020, and it's still today on our website. And then the question came, well, should we close down? The centennial, quote unquote, is now sort of over, but should we shut down? And that was at about the time the sky started to fall. And it became clear that groups of women needed to stay together and be together. And so we decided to build on suffrage as our foundation to encompass all of Massachusetts women's history. And so we are the Massachusetts Women's History Center online, and we are also creating the Massachusetts Women's Hall of Fame. And I'm pleased that Charlotte Gola-Ritchie is here, who's serving on our committee for that, which is wonderful. And I have so many people to thank in the audience who have been so helpful with us with getting this off the ground and having this go forward. So I want to say, I think in this time that we realize these are hard times and we need to stick together. So it's great to be in community with you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Freddie. And I would be remiss if I didn't call out the fact that today marks the 60th anniversary of the Selma Bloody Sunday, when so many people were harmed, maimed during that time for the voting rights of Black Americans. And I have to also shout out Gloria Steinem, who actually credits the Black movement, the civil rights movement in this country that helped to fuel the feminist movement, that they borrowed the techniques and principles. So I thank you for bringing up voting rights, because it reminds us of the fragility that it's in our lifetime. 60 years is not a long time in my lifetime and in all of the panelists' lifetime. Maybe not the next panelist.
I'm here in solidarity. Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
Oh, this is a great crowd. I always got to say that twice, but let's do it again just because it felt good. Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
Love it. So this work is deeply personal to me. I'm a first-generation Chilena Americana Bostoniana. So, sorry, Mom. I know firsthand what it is to be the power of education. I'm a proud product of Boston Public Schools, a proud daughter of Boston in general. And I also know what it is to feel underestimated, underpaid, how to navigate spaces where people don't expect you to lead. Growing up, my mom, who's here in the room, shout out to my mom. She instilled in me from a very, very, very young age that la educación es la única cosa que nadie te puede quitar.
Amen.
So, translation, education is the only thing that no one can take away from you. So that's always been, ingrained in my everyday life, and so I knew the importance of education. Again, I went to Boston Public Schools. I did graduate from Boston Latin School, very proud of that, and I cannot speak to what a typical non-exam school experience in a high school looks like, which that says a lot, right? That means there are huge inequities in our education system, starting with our K through 12 education. And so that's always, really stuck around and has impacted who I am. And so that's why I do what I do. I lead the Boston Education Fund. We are the nonprofit organization that helps support and bring in philanthropic funding to support Boston Public Schools in general. And the work that we do is really centered around uplifting the voices of our educators, our students, our families, the babies inside of the classroom. And so, what we're really trying to do is advocate for equity so that every student, regardless of what zip code they live in, regardless of what their household looks like, regardless of the color of their skin, gets the necessary opportunities they need to thrive. And so it's very important to me, as now a mother of two boys who are Boston Public School students that go to two very different schools, and I see the inequities firsthand every day. I'm doing the work on all different fronts, and so my goal really is that when I leave here, it's going to be a little bit better than when I got here.
Amen.
Thank you. So the former mayor of Atlanta, I'm a history buff, said there are three things that you need to be successful when you are marginalized. You need the book, education, you need the ballot, which is voting, and you need the buck, which is money. So the book, the ballot, and the votes. So my name is, again, Colette Phillips, and I am at the intersection of four different things. I am Black, as you can see. I'm a woman, which you can see. I'm an immigrant, which you can't see. and I'm Jewish. So I cover all of that. And I came to Boston as a young 17-year-old, very excited. Boston is the cradle of America. It's the birthplace of America. And so I was very excited to be here. And I came here just after busing. So imagine the excitement, great expectation, and then great disappointment. And I graduated from Emerson College. I was majored in journalism and public relations and went back to my island of Antigua, where I worked in television. So this being here is not, I wasn't joking when I said about Oprah. I was considered the Oprah of Antigua because I had my own talk show called Let's Talk. And then I came back, and people say, you came back to Boston? I'm a glutton for punishment. But I felt that Boston was calling. You know, we all have work to do. And I felt that I had work to do in Boston. So while fate brought me to Boston, faith, F-A-I-T-H, kept me in Boston. And I launched the first ever public relations firm by a person of color in Boston. I mean, I say you like a dinosaur, but it's only been like over 30 years ago. So we still have a long way to go, the fact that I was the first. And when you are the first, there's always pressure. And the other thing that I observed, I also used my platform in public relations to educate companies about the fact that they were leaving women and people of color out of their marketing mix, and that they were literally leaving money on the table. Because if you're talking to business people, you have to talk economics, how it impacts their bottom line. And so I premiered and basically pioneered multicultural marketing. So I've been at this for a long time. And if you can believe this, next year will be 40 years. I started when I was 10 of being in business. And then the other thing I noticed was that I would be in spaces where I would probably either be the only person or one of less than 5. And I thought, this is crazy. So my father taught me that if you're going to complain, you better have a plan.
Amen.
And so I created something 17 years ago, I can't believe. And interestingly enough, you talk about Charlotte. Charlotte was the head of neighborhood development. And at the time, the Menino mayoral administration gave small grants to businesses that would hire people in Boston or was doing something. And she was the one who really, so I am the mother, she's the godmother of Get Connected, and Get Connected was formed to bring people together, one, across cultural lines, and also to create specialized lists to demonstrate and show the contributions that people of color make to not only Boston, but to the Commonwealth. There are people in this room like Gary and President Wooten who have made the list, because I want people to be able to see us and not say, well, where are they? We can't find them. Well, here they are.
Amen.
So proud to say that the impact has been great, because now Boston Magazine's list, because of my list, is now 150 as opposed to 100, because I have introduced them to so many people of color that were not in their book. So their list. So I am so thrilled to be here, and I'll share more as we go through, because I also was a pioneer in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'll tell you about that when it's my turn, but now let me turn it back over to Reverend Cherry. So let me ask you this question. As an ordained chaplain, you bring a spiritual lens to the healing process. How do you incorporate this healing care into your work, and how can feminist organizations ensure that spiritual needs are respected in trauma recovery?
Ooh, thank you. You know, I was baptized Methodist. I practice Catholicism, that's all I know. I enjoy a good Baptist revival. And so for me, I don't focus on religion, I focus on relational. I didn't realize that I was on that path, again, until Lewis was killed. You know, I attended Mass, I donated to the needies, I did everything. I prayed, my children did their confirmation, first communion, you name it, I did it. I was one of those mothers who was always in the church, not a church mother, but just always in the church giving. And I think I realized when I really felt that I was being called by God to bring about his peace to his people, is when Lewis was killed. I remember going to my priest and crying because people were telling me, girl, what you doing? You look so good. And I'm trying to understand, what do you mean I look so good? My child is dead and my husband left me. What the hell? Did I say hell? Sorry. And so, that's okay. And so I'm sitting in front of my priest, and you know, I kissed the ground the late Father Vanu walks on, because instead of him preaching to me and telling me about God, and he looked at me and he said, you know God is there. You have him at a distance. Put your hands down and let him in. Wow. And when I put my hands down, oh, it was like this weight was taken off of me. And I'm looking at the Father and I'm saying, but how and why? And he says, just ask God. And I remember just saying to God, what do you want from me? He says, you will teach my peace to my people. And I laughed. Catholics, we can't be women ministers. Yet I asked how. I was guided to John 14:27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give it as the world does. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. That was a gift that I realized I possess all the time. So I decided to open that gift and live that gift and be at that gift. I had to feed myself first. I had to feed. God said, first you must seek, receive, and experience. Mm-hmm. And only when you do, then you can teach others. And so with 7 core principles, love, unity, faith, hope, courage, justice, and forgiveness, I started to feed my soul. And that's what I bring to the Peace Institute. We are guided by these 7 principles. And when we work with families, it's not about imposing my belief on them. It's about looking to them and hearing the worst has happened to you. What are you going to do? There's man's way, and then there's a spiritual way. You choose. And so through our healing and support services is where we have mindfulness. We have what's called peace play in urban settings. It's a healing modality that kept me out of a mental institution. It kept me from taking my life, and it kept me from taking the life of my children. It was a spiritual healing modality that is not about talk therapy. Therapists didn't look like me, and so I couldn't talk to them. So that's the foundation. That's what we do at the Peace Institute, is really providing a space. We're grieving. You got to grieve. The world don't have time to wait for you to grieve, because we can't grieve forever. What are you going to do, and what are you being called to do? So we provide training to the families. How do you transfer your pain and anger into power and action? And how do you make a difference? So really, healing is that component. And within spirituality, I walk by faith and not by sight. And for me, we are living in a world where we're suffering. And how do we make sure that those of us that have a higher power and calling lead with that and not with the chaos and confusion that's happening in the world? So that's what spirituality means for me, and that's how it's incorporated in everything that we do as part of the Peace Institute. Healing is central. It's not a by the way, it is central, and yet it begins with healing our wounded heart.
Thank you so much. What you just said reminds me very much of the prophet Micah in the Old Testament and in the Jewish Torah. And it's a foundational principle of Judaism, that your issue and your purpose in life is to do good, seek justice, and walk humbly with God.
Micah 6:8, yes.
So you embody that, so thank you. Freddie, I want you to share with us, because you work to preserve the history of the women's movement. And I wondered if you can basically tell us how this history that you're amplifying can empower and today's activists to move forward with greater unity and purpose.
Thank you. I will do my best. First, I want to say I was incredibly moved by what you had to say, Clementine, and thank you for your addition to that. This will be on a different place, I guess I would say, but that was wonderful. Thank you so much. And I want to mention, I think that it's important that one of the reasons we're so pleased that the Mass Women's History Center is represented here is because I do think we learn so much from our history, much of which we were never taught. We do not know about women's history. Or Black history, or other, we do not. Native American history, Asian, Latina, we do not. And that's a problem. That is a real problem. I think it's a real problem because I think of women today as International Women's Day. We have sisters around the world, many of whom are in pain. They are in their homes in pain. They are struggling in their individual lives, and sometimes they may have no place to go or the ability to even share that. But I think it's important that we know, we reach out to them, maybe it's spiritual, to say, you know, we feel you. We know that women have something in common. Our lives, something about our lives. And so it's important for us to be together. And our role in this, I feel like, for the Mass Women's History Center is to amplify and to fill in those blanks. So yes, I was a feminist. I knew some history, but I have loved for these past 14 years just reading. I have books and books. I've sort of become an amateur historian, I would say, because there's so much that we don't know. And I'm gonna change the mood for a second, maybe, and just give you a little snippet of history to show you the kinds of things that we were not brought up with. Many of you can think back, unfortunately it's timely, January 2017. Where were we? On the Boston Common. How many of you were there out marching? A lot, right? So we were out marching. It was cold. Boston Common, it was crowded. We couldn't even move. They managed to take a snapshot and figure out that there were about 175,000 people at the Boston Common on that day, speaking up to what was then the first administration. Go back in history, and what did we learn? When women were trying to get the vote, and it began in 1848, it didn't begin then, but it was the first time women gathered to talk about it at Seneca Falls, and they had many things that they were asking for, and the one thing that Elizabeth Cady Stanton insisted be included was the right to vote. Others thought, oh, it's too much, they'll make fun of us, which they did. Lucretia Mott was even concerned about it. But Frederick Douglass came to the Seneca Falls Convention, and he was a young man, a young orator, and he helped convince enough people to pass it. It was the only item not agreed unanimously in Seneca Falls, 1848. 1850, the first National Women's Rights Convention in Worcester. We have Celia Blue here. Shout out to Worcester. 1850 and 1851, the first National Women's Rights Convention. Fast forward up to the 1900s, we're talking decades now. What's happening? They were trying state by state by state to get the vote. A few passed it. I think we were up to 11 states out of 40 or so that had passed it. It was going nowhere fast. That's where Alice Paul comes and enters the scene in 1913 with a big parade in Washington, D.C. But in 1915, Massachusetts women did not have the vote. And they were fighting to get the Constitution changed in Massachusetts so women could have the vote. And they worked for 2 years, and there were 2 marches in Boston to do that. One was in 1914 that was large. In 1915, they had a march and a parade down Beacon Street, 500,000 people were at this parade. And 1 month later, it was defeated at the ballot box. So you think about these women in community who worked so hard to get this, and it failed. So Massachusetts ended up in the same situation as other states, and it was ultimately with the federal amendment that Massachusetts got the right to vote. But what did those women do after the vote failed? They worked. And actually, they worked hard to change their elected officials so that when it came to a vote, Massachusetts was on the right side of history, and we became the 8th state to ratify the amendment. So I share that story. There are so many like those, just to say that there were women before us who worked together in unity to try to make change, and we need to be together like today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Freddie. So true. Margaret Thatcher, who she and her politics could never be further away, the late Prime Minister of England, says, when you want something said, you ask a man. But if you want something done, you ask a woman. Put a woman in charge. Pamela, can you tell us, with education right now being under attack, can you believe that? Education is the basis of how people get out of poverty, how they grow, and yet there are people who are attacking education, who canceled the student debt bill that the president passed. They are now putting a stop on that. So I want you to address that issue around how do we ensure young people, and in particular young women, that they have access to the resources and education they need to be future leaders and change makers in our city, state, and country.
Thank you for that. So I really think about my own experience as a Latina navigating the spaces here where I haven't always seen and still don't really see much representation in leadership roles, especially with women that kind of look like me. And so I had to learn how to advocate for myself. I also had incredible women who helped me lead the way for me. And I love saying names and uplifting names, but I'm a proud product of the TAG program, the Talented and Gifted Latino program that is out of UMass Boston. The founder, Lucia Mayerson-David, fellow Chilena also, she created this amazing program that really shaped so much of who I am today. One, because she was a kick-ass leader. Two, because she created a space where young Latinos, Latinas felt like they belonged. We belonged in the university space. We belonged at Latin school. We created our own community that was also inclusive of anybody else that wanted to join the community, right? Which was also beautiful. And so I just think it's so important that we have to protect and expand access to education. Especially ensuring that all women, particularly from marginalized communities, don't face barriers to learning, and that we have access to whatever it is that we need to thrive. As you recall, I said, and I'm gonna keep saying it, especially I see Rootsy, I see some BLS alums here, proud product of Boston Latin School. And I also am not your typical Boston Latin School graduate. I'd like to say that I took the scenic route post graduating high school, where it took me 18 years to get my bachelor's degree, another 3 years to get my master's degree. And I didn't do that alone. I have 2 kids now. There was a whole community, family that supported me throughout that journey, and I would not be here without that fundamental support. And so for education, you know, mentorship, leadership development, and representation. I also would not be here if it wasn't for the few folks that believed in me and took a risk in hiring the tattooed girl that doesn't speak very eloquently, or, you know, I just come into every room as my authentic self. And for anyone that does know me, they know that no matter what room I walk into, who I'm talking to, what hat I'm wearing. I always say I wear all of the hats all of the time into every single room that I walk into. I don't do this. That's who I am, and I've embraced that. And if it wasn't for the investments that were put into programs like the TAG program, into the community centers that also helped raise me. I lived in community centers while my mom was working. That's where I was after school. So all of these programs that helped in me becoming who I am today, I think just having someone like me on this panel also is like, again, I refer to my tattoos a lot, and I do this intentionally, right? I roll up my sleeves. One, because we all like to be a little defiant, but also, like, I really do believe that there is a young woman out there that sees me and says, hey, I want to be like her. I aspire to inspire. And so again, the investments, we cannot give up on our babies. We have to create any type of programming to help support and acknowledge that everyone needs something different. There isn't a one-size-fits-all program that's going to make every single one of us successful. And so we need to really amplify and think about what that looks like. And also, at Boston Education Fund, a lot of people have asked me, like, how does the federal government, all of these blocks and things that's happening with education, how is that affecting you? And very quickly I say, well, we don't depend on federal grants. Thank God, right now, right? Our work is really based on philanthropy and finding ways to bring in funding to support and complement the budget. It's not to supplement. I say that it's very important. We still need all of the resources on that side of the world. And we also really need to put our money where our mouth is. Through the Boston Education Fund, I've kicked off this movement. I love to call it a movement, not an initiative. And it's called Equity Boston. And the idea of Equity Boston is that, one, we're bringing together the concept of participatory budgeting and grant making with philanthropy to support public schooling. You heard it here first. This is going to be a national replicable model. I feel it. I know it. I'm very proud of it. But really the idea is that whether you're donating $5 or $5 million, our voices collectively will make an impact. And the voices are equal, right? It doesn't matter how much, as long as we all contribute to it and we'll all make an impact in education, especially when we are uplifting and centering the voices of our educators, our students, our families, because they're the ones in the classrooms, they're the ones that know exactly what needs are. And what I will also say is that, again, mom of 2 boys in Boston Public Schools, you can have 2 schools, very similar demographics, and across the street from each other. One school has hundreds of thousands of dollars in funding that have come in through philanthropy that we manage, EDF manages, houses it. And then another school across the street that looks very similar with $138 in their funds. So there are huge inequities, and part of that reason is because the resources that go into that school are only as good as the people that are in that school during that time. And so what a lot of folks don't necessarily see, or maybe we don't really speak about it, is that me, for example, I come with the privilege of how I know how to navigate resources. I know it's what I do. I get paid to do this. And so those resources, that knowledge that I have, I bring it to the parent councils, right, for the schools that my kids are in. But once my kids age out of the classroom or out of that school and it goes to the next school, that goes with me. Right? Unless, I would like to think that I do a good enough job that some of it stays and that they're just going to get better. But that's the reality in terms of how we as parents, as caretakers, can really make an impact into making sure that resources are available to our babies all the time, no matter what you're doing. So all that to say is, don't forget about the babies.
Thank you. Well, let me give another shout out to another history maker in the room. Like, this is a room of history makers. We have the president of the Boston City Council, first Haitian American, Ruthie Lejeune.
Thank you. My next one's gonna say, Rootsy.
So this is my panelist hat on. And as we all know, diversity, equity, and inclusion is under tremendous attack, where there are movements now, well, it's been banned by the federal government, and they're putting pressure on corporate America to abandon and higher ed, to just wipe it out. And I have been in this space for, as I told you, close to 40 years, 4 decades. And so for me, it is really unacceptable, because I think it has been weaponized, demonized, and politicized, using it as a punching bag to punch back the rights that women and people of color have achieved in this country to this date. And the question that was posed is, how do we respond to this challenge? So I'm going to tell you, last year, I started working with a group in Washington called the Rabin Group, and it's a group that was started by the former Deputy Attorney General under Clinton in Washington, and they are very prominent, very good at what they do, and I've been working with them for a whole year. And what they did is they basically engaged a research firm to look into DEI. This was right before the election. And interestingly enough, they did across the spectrum of political. They had the right, the centrist, and independent, and liberals. And when you ask people, when you ask the right about DEI, they hated it, but they couldn't tell you what it's about. They just know they didn't like it. But when they ask the question individually, well, are you for diversity? Of course I'm for diversity. We are a diverse country. Well, are you for equality and fairness and equal rights, that everybody should be treated the same? Are you crazy? Who's not for equality and equal rights and fairness? And then you say, well, what about inclusion? They say, well, America is a place where everybody is supposed to be included. Nobody likes exclusion. So they came up with a messaging guide that says to stop using the acronym DEI, and when you use the term, spell it out: diversity, equity, and inclusion. So tell me which one of those you don't like. Is it diversity? Is it inclusion? Is it equity? What don't you like about it? You have to engage people. So here's what I wrote a whole book. Little did I know when I started writing this book during the pandemic that DEI was going to become, diversity, equity, and inclusion was going to become such a topic, a hot topic. And so my perspective on diversity, equity, and inclusion, how I try to educate people, is to lay it out and to say, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not musical chairs. So when the music stops, if you're not in front of a chair, you fall out, you're out of the game. It is a Thanksgiving table. And what do we do at Thanksgiving? We cook more food, we expand our table, we bring more chairs in, and everybody has a seat and everybody has a meal. That's what DEI is about, leveling the playing field. It's not about replacement, it's not about reverse racism. And the other thing that I try to explain to people is to break it down. I said diversity, equity, and inclusion is about the differently abled young man or woman who is a bagger at your local grocery store. It is about your coworker who is on maternity leave early because she has to be on bed rest to protect the health of her child. It is your cousin's son or daughter who has autism and needs to be in a school with special teachers who understand that. It is your next door neighbor who is a veteran who fought for the freedoms that we enjoy in this country. So when you talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, it really is about all of us. It's not about just women or people of color or LGBTQ plus individuals. It's about everybody. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is about ensuring no person is discriminated against because of their background, because of their circumstances, how they look, who they love, or anything. It's about everybody. And diversity, equity, and inclusion matters. That's what it's about. It's not reverse racism, because who is damaged? I can tell you what white racism does to black people. It prevents us from education. It prevents us from voting, because we now have the voting rights held up in the Congress. It prevents us from housing, from economic equity. But if I were to ask you the question, if you say there is black or people of color racism, how does that impact white people in this country? Anybody?
So I talked to my great aunt, who is a Democrat, who lives in Arizona, in a very purple state, and lives in a sort of gated, wealthy golf community. And sincerely, she said to me after the election, you need to understand, as scared and upset as we feel, you need to understand, as scared and upset as we feel now with the Trump election, that's how the poor Republicans have been feeling. They have been that scared and that upset. I'm not saying this justifies anything, but I am saying that the fear-mongering that is being directed at us is directed by the same people at their own people to say that they are in the target. So a real effect? No.
Thank you for sharing
effect.
that, because people of color and women are not in a power position to prevent men or anybody. Black people cannot defer education from whites. They cannot defer their rights to vote, and they cannot defer their rights to live in whatever neighborhood they want. That's what racism does. It's structural, it is systemic, and it's institutional. And we have to break it down and get rid of it. And that's why I'm so proud to see men. We have two young men in this room, Gary and one of my colleagues, and the men back there working on making sure this is captured, because we need male allies. They're the ones who sit, especially white men, they sit in the power seats. And we need them to stand up, to speak out. And that's why I love people like Bob Rivers, the CEO of Eastern Bank, and the head of Costco's, who said, we are not going back. We are not, if you don't like the fact that we are standing up for diversity, equity, and inclusion, sell your stocks. Don't shop in our Costco's. Go spend a higher cost. And that's okay with us. That's the kind of courage we need from our corporate leaders, because we certainly aren't getting it from our politicals. So I think we're at 11:35, and if we can quickly, I'm going to ask one question. No. You're looking at me. I'm looking at your beautiful face. If we can quickly answer a question, I'm going to ask all the panelists. Just, see if we can go up to 11:40, but do it real fast. And I would like to ask you, as you reflect on the theme of today, which is really about collective action, unity, and how do we sort of bring each other together, I'm going to ask, what can we do, how each of us here today can take strength and strengthen the feminist movement in our own communities? Quickly.
I'm just going to say, listen, amplify, and act.
Thank you.
Well said. I'll be quick also and add to that. Look to the women of the past and allies as well for inspiration. They've been in dark places also, and they give us inspiration. And I love the last line, or a line in the musical Stuffs, and the song is called "Keep marching. And one of the lines is, progress is possible, but not guaranteed. And we have to keep marching. Thank you.
So I'm a huge fan of Hamilton, and I use this quote a lot. In Hamilton, he says, "What is a legacy? A legacy is planting seeds in a garden we may not see."
Oh, I love that.
That's our job. Our job is to plant the seeds, and we might not get to see the garden that's coming, but it's growing. This is a room full of amazing, beautiful, dope-ass flowers. And so, just keep going, keep working, keep doing the good and fighting the good fight. And I think that, the world is going to be, I have hope, and not lose hope. I think that's really important too. So keep planting those seeds, and then just know that the garden that we're creating is blooming, and we're part of that.
Thank you. And my hope is that we can tell the truth. And sometimes telling truth makes us very uncomfortable. But life begins at the end of our comfort zone. So this is not about blaming, shaming, or guilting. So let me preface this by that. And I want to say to our white sisters in the room that we have to address the issue of gender and race. Because the women of color in this room, we can't change our gender, and we can't change how we look. For the last 3 elections, white women voters have consistently voted for Donald Trump in a great majority, over 50. So they chose their race over their gender. Even in some states where they voted to protect reproductive rights, but didn't vote for Kamala Harris. So we have to confront those and tell the truth. And we have to, if we are going to have a collaborative relationship, we have to be able to be honest with each other. Because relationships, regardless whether it's a marriage, a work environment, a friendship, is built on 3 things. First, you gotta know somebody. You have to like them. But more importantly, you have to trust them. And the way you build trust, right now, I will tell you that women of color, they may not be saying it to you, but we are saying it among ourselves, do not feel trusting of our white sisters because we have been disappointed too frequently. So that's my message. It's not a message of a Debbie Downer. It's how do we collectively work together and lift each other up? Because in order to move this movement forward, you need allies. And the women of color, when we work together with our white sisters, we can move mountains because we are stronger together. And now let me open it up for questions.
Any questions in the room? Testing?
Hi, everybody. I was a little late, so maybe you addressed this, but the SAVE Act, is that something that's been talked about already?
No.
The SAVE Act is an obstruction for women and people of color's voting rights, and it's been proposed in Congress. Check it out, Google it, and then call your congresspeople. It's very dangerous. They want us to go back to our maiden names in order to vote, or our given names, may I say, sorry. So let's call. My congressman now says, talk to you tomorrow, and their offices when I call every other day.
Who's your congressman? Maybe you should run for Congress.
There you go.
Let's go to the young lady at the mic, please.
Hi, my name is Robin. I'm a mom in Cambridge. Really glad to be here with you all today. My question is for the room in the spirit of democracy. Will you all help me in claiming the right to vote for children and boys? This is the continuation of the Votes for Women campaign. It's the Votes for Children campaign. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So Pamela, one of the things that you said, I would say almost made me cry, and you're gonna be surprised at what it was. It was the importance of community centers in your life. So one of the hats I wear is I'm Ellen Cross-Grossman, I'm the executive secretary of the Allston-Brighton Chamber of Commerce. Our only community center has been closed because that's sort of what's going on by us. And we have Ruth Z's support, we have Liz Braden's support, we have lots of support for something different to happen, but it's not happening, and it's coming down hardest on our kids and our families. And so I would say to you and to other folks, what can we do at the community level, and what do we need to be doing to support our kids and our families, like making sure that Allston-Brighton has at least one open community center?
Get Harvard involved.
Harvard is a very mixed bag partner for us in Allston-Brighton. They do some great things, and then they leave buildings vacant and make our neighborhood less valuable and less safe and less pleasant to be in because they land bank for the long haul. And when you land bank for the long haul, the fake realty sign in front of the vacant building that's vacant for 10 years, you're going to build something 10 or 20 years from now. And so I just have to say it's a huge pain point for us that we don't have our needs met, and everyone's like, oh, but you have Harvard and BC and BU. You all will be okay. We're not.
Okay, thank you, Ellen, for sharing that. And
so community centers are own a big piece of my heart. I will say that. I also will add that for about 7 years, I was the director of development at BCYF at the community centers. And the last year I served as deputy commissioner. So I know and breathe and am a proud product of growing up in the community centers. And so I know very well the impacts of what it is to have a community center in a community and how hurtful it can be in not having one. And so to you, especially in Allston-Brighton, the work has to just continue. You just can't give up. And I would say, you have some great allies advocating for this. I mean, in Ruth Z alone, and there's so many folks, because we understand, and I would just say, please just don't give up. It's hard, but it is necessary, and so it's just so very, very, very important to have folks like you advocating. And also bring in the kids, bring in the kids, have them speak to the impact of having the community center there and what it means to be part of that family. That's so very, very, very necessary.
Thank you. Mary, yes?
Thank you. Thank you, sister panelists. You ladies are awesome. You rock. I loved everything. But you know me, I like to throw a little. So, March, Women's Month 2025, moving forward together. International Women's Day, accelerate action. Ramadan, connecting. My question to you, maybe almost like I'm asking you for a call to action because one of the things that we don't talk about is that feminine rivalry, right? No matter what race we are, no matter what arena we're in, it's there, but we seem to, it's like talking about postpartum. It's about talking about menopause. Can you ladies give us a little something about feminine rivalry, your experience, or what you think we need to do to be able to talk about that trauma of feminine rivalry? Thank you.
Reverend.
That is an amazing question. And there's so many different ways. So I'm just going to share some love dots. And then I would love to continue this conversation because it is, for me, the first one, we have to move beyond silos.
That's right.
I'm Black. I'm Latina. Let me tell you what I deal with. When I'm in room with African Americans, they're talking about these immigrants coming to take our jobs. I have to say, hi, I'm one of those immigrants. I didn't take your job. I founded my own organization. When I'm in the room with my Latina sisters, I don't look like them. This is what I hear. ¿Qué está haciendo esta negra aquí? You all know what that means, right?
Yep.
And so I have to say, estoy aquí porque soy de Honduras. And so that's where we have to. I know racism is there. I look at colorism and culturism. Because when they come, they ain't gonna ask where we from.
That's right.
So that's the first thing I'm gonna say. 2, create more cross-generational leadership opportunities.
Yep.
Who are we coaching and guiding and bringing with us? 3, invest in healing as a strategy for justice. Advocacy cannot only be done, it cannot only be about resistance. 4, hold institutional accountables. In Boston, the more murder, the more money comes to this city, where it comes from police, prosecution, and prison. It is us as women who are losing our boys and girls at both ends. So how do we begin to hold systems accountable? I'm coming down, but I thought you were going to ask this question. 5, uplift the stories of strength and resilience. Tell our stories. Share who we are. Let's stop saying nobody is doing anything. We have a tendency on Facebook, and right now we don't even have to send a press release. We've got this social media. How do we begin to uplift the stories of women? Have the museum that's coming up. And how do we just tell our story without feeling that if I say something about you, then that's going to put me to the side? No. The more I promote you, it just shows that I am not that crazy woman doing this work, talking about peace and healing in the city where violence continues to happen. So those, for me, are my 5 love dots that I want to share. And then, you know, Mary, let's keep showing up. I am in awe of you. Where'd she go? She asked the question. Where'd she go? She left. Mary.
Like, Mary, come back.
You know, so the idea is we are all doing amazing work, regardless of our color, of our class, of our culture, and of the community that we come from. So that's the action that I invite all of us. When you hear somebody saying something on Facebook, nobody's doing anything, we gotta do. Right. Ask the question, what are you doing and how can I be of service to you? That's it.
Freddie, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, my first thought is to say what she said. That was beautiful. The one thought I have about all of us, and it's so wonderful to be here together, we don't do this, we do it once a year, and which is wonderful. But I think about communication, and what is our communication between us so that we can continue to be collaborative, that we can find ways to collaborate more on a regular basis, because we're all busy. Everybody's working so hard. I have to give a big shout out to my team that came today, Maureen, Pat, Cherise, Alana. Folks, thank you so much for coming and all your work. And everybody's working so hard to find time and space so that we can collaborate more together. Thank you.
Cindy Rowe from JALSA, Jewish Alliance for Law and Social Justice. A social alliance, yes.
Thank you, my good friends on the panel. So my question is really around DEI and the destruction that it will really cause to all aspects of our mission. Our mission is very broad: social, economic, environmental, and racial justice. And as we see these attacks on DEI and what they are doing to democracy and what they are doing to all the social and economic justice causes we work on, we are horrified and we don't want to stay there. We want to move into action. So my question to you folks is to start thinking about how we do move into action. What are things that you are thinking about that we all can rally around to make Boston a stronghold in keeping with DEI principles?
Well, let me grab that, since I think one of the things we have to do is really rally allies, because we can't do it alone. Mm-hmm. We need the people who sit in the seats of power. And I'm so disappointed to hear your congressperson. I mean, what was he elected to do?
So used to calling.
Oh.
I'll talk to you tomorrow.
That's still sad.
That's, talk to me now.
Exactly.
We need people to
Say,
we need
okay,
to take action.
I'll vote for you tomorrow.
Yes, yes. Thanks, Patricia. Absolutely. I'll vote for you tomorrow. No, I think we have to think about this and think about allyship. And also, we need to use our collective voices, because, and I thank you for asking that question, Cindy, because it seems like the only people I'm seeing on social media, and I want to give a shout out to some very brave, courageous white women who have been calling out the fact that white women need to stand up more. 76% of the people who are in DEI position are white. Not just women, but white. So contrary to popular belief that the chief diversity officers or the chief people officers in corporate organizations or organizations in general are people of color, it's not. And so we have to be willing to really speak up, stand up, and speak out. Make our voices be heard. They can't shout us down. Because I truly believe that this so-called MAGA group is a vocal minority. We need to call out the silent majority. You know, Dr. King once said that when everything is done, we are not going to remember all the things that were done to us. What will stand with us is the silence of our friends. So all of us should leave here today thinking about, who are we going to engage with to be an ally for us, to be an advocate, to stand up for us, and to speak out? Anybody? Before we close this out, I don't want people to leave here feeling hopeless and despair. I want to give you a sense of hope. So here is something I wrote a couple of years ago that I want you to take away with you in your heart. May you always carry with you the love of humanity of Mahatma Gandhi, the passion for civil rights and social justice, like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the willingness to stand up for what is right, like Rosa Parks, the dignity and respect for all people, like Nelson Mandela, the humility and compassion of Mother Teresa, the courage to listen, lean in, and lead with your heart of Anwar Sadat, and the hope, forgiveness, and optimism of Anne Frank.
Can I add? And the defiancy and badassness of Frida Kahlo.
Thank you.
That was solid. Let's hear it for our wonderful panel this morning.
Can you believe that Colette emceed last minute? That's incredible. It's like you were ready to do this before we even asked you.
Thank you to the Oprah of Antigua.
My heart is so full to have been so encouraged and to learn so much history today from our panel. My heart is so full to be in community with all of you. I have met some new faces. I've been able to meet people in person that I've been emailing with online for years, and that's what today is all about. So I hope you also got to meet someone new that you can work with in community, because we have a lot of work ahead of us.
Yes, then the list keeps growing, because you know it never stops with women. So I every day, I always love doing this event every year because I always feel so full. I love seeing the smiling faces. I love seeing just people come together. Like, this is just like, ooh, my adrenaline has been running since this morning, but okay, yes, we're gonna put it in a minute. But I wanna say that these four women here are such great examples of sometimes you don't need a yes from someone else because you know where your yes is coming from, and that's from inside. They had the tenacity and the vision to move forward and inspire others. So I want you all to leave inspired today. I know we talked about the things, about how the world is right now, no matter what you believe or where you are. I know we're all feeling it, but these are a few good examples that if you know that your gut is telling you to do something, let's build community and make solutions. So I just want to say thank you to our panelists for showing us different ways and outlets for us to thrive and survive for the future. So before we go out into the world with our call to action to go change it and go fight the power, if you will, I just want to bring up some logistical reminders. If you parked in the Simmons parking lot, we have discounted parking tickets, right? Everyone loves a discount. So as you exit, grab one from a volunteer on your way out if you need a parking pass. And return your badges too. For next year, we love to recycle. Let's keep it green. But besides that, I just want to say thank you for being a part of this movement. Thank you to Sasha, my other half. Like, leading this breakfast and bringing all these people together it makes me feel so full, because I think in a world when we're told that we can't do much because of who we are, where we came from, the education that we have, who we don't have access to, that there is not a way. And every year this gather reminds me that there is, and that there will continue to be, no matter who says that there isn't one, because we see one. So again, thank you for trusting myself and Sasha for bringing us all together today. And happy International Women's Day. And we look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you, everyone.